Today I'll be showing you how to grow your own Anacacho orchid tree from seed. This will be my 4th year growing this tree for myself in a row, and I can confidently tell you that it's one of the easiest native trees to grow from seed, probably only beaten by the Mexican buckeye for overall difficulty level. As you probably know, it's hard to find much good information online on how to grow species with only regional popularity, so it's a good idea to use a book like this, How to Grow Native Plants of Texas and the Southwest by Jill Nokes. As you may have seen, my copy has a library label on the spine. This is because the book is out of print, and so I had to purchase it secondhand. This book describes this tree as a multi-trunk shrub or small tree, 6 1/2 to 10 feet tall, light green deciduous leaves divided at the base into 2 leaflets, yet appearing as one broad, deeply cleft, hoof-shaped leaf. Each cleft is 1/2 to 1 inch long. I'm a collector of regional plant guides for Central Texas, and something that I've found is that there are always incorrect bits of information or statements that don't show the whole picture. This book is probably the best when it comes to getting all useful information correct because Jill Nokes supposedly consulted with many horticulturalists to compile the information found in this book, rather than just looking into whatever some university library has to say. Of course, that's not to say that universities can't be a good source for this kind of stuff, but on-the-ground research is generally more accurate and practical for these kind of things. The reason I bring that up is that when I first got started growing trees, I often got tripped up by information that was only 80 or 90% correct, not realizing that nature is not uniform and it could be argued that freaks of nature are actually the norm. For example, this book claims that Anacachos grow to between 6.5 and 10 feet tall, and that each leaflet is between 1.5 and 1 inch long, but in my experience, most will eventually reach heights of at least 8 feet, and I often encounter specimens as tall as 12 feet, with the tallest I've seen reaching 15 feet. And the leaves will be completely different in size depending on the weather. For example, my own Anacacho, which I planted as a 3-foot, 3-gallon baby about 4 years ago, had 2-inch leaves its second year in the ground, and 0.5-inch leaves its third, due to an especially cold frost that year and especially hot summer. And if you're curious, my Anacacho is now about 8 feet tall. This book is totally right about what you'll find 90% of the time, but don't think that you have the wrong tree simply because it's not perfect. It doesn't perfectly line up with what the book's description says. So now that we know what it looks like, we need to know where to find it. Alright, so the book says, Bauhinia is rare in Texas, known only to the canyons and arroyos of the limestone hills of the Anacacho Mountains in Kinney County, and from an isolated site along the Devils River in Val Verde County, both in West Texas. Occasionally found in cultivation, orchid tree will tolerate temperatures as low as 10 degrees and will adapt well to well-drained sites in Houston and Austin. It can be grown as far north as Dallas if given south wall protection, but will suffer heavy limb damage during severe winters. The video I'm showing you now are Anacachos growing wild on a hiking trail just west of Austin. When I say growing wild, I don't mean that they naturally showed up there. I mean that someone planted them many years ago, maybe watered them for the first year or so, but they have since abandoned them to nature. This is what they look like when they aren't pruned or watered or babied and are left to natural forces in an environment approximating that one which it grows in naturally. And if you live in a part of the hill country with residential green belts and hiking trails, you'll likely find a couple that look like this, and maybe even find some that have been grown naturally from seed nearby, like I have on occasion. Other than places like this, they are used in landscape plants all over downtown Austin, up and down creeks and sidewalks, and aren't uncommon in neighborhoods. Although they might look more like domes than actual trees in cultivation, and I can attest to the claim that they can survive 10-degree weather. I've seen it survive 10 degrees a few years in a row without much damage. So it can do it even consecutive years. So now for seed collection and storage. Collect the seed pods in early July to August when they have turned brown and are slightly dried out, but before they dehiss. The pods may be collected earlier as long as the seeds inside are firm, filled out, and brown. Air dry the pods for a few days to make them easier to split open. Seeds should be fumigated before storage to prevent infestation by weevils. Viability may be preserved for up to 2 years if stored in sealed containers in cool, dry spaces. That word dehiss essentially means to split open, which is shown here, initiated by me. But if you leave them on the tree or leave them to dry after picking them, you will notice that they pop open themselves and sometimes throw the seeds pretty far. This book mentions weevils, which are basically beetles that lay their eggs inside seeds, and when they hatch, they destroy the inside and crawl out, leaving bore holes like this. This footage being shown is from a video called Wie kommt das Loch in die Haselnuss by Die Maus on YouTube, and it depicts the process happening to a hazelnut. I don't worry about any fumigation, but I do follow all the other instructions with the additional step of leaving the seeds out a few more days before storing them. I don't know that helps, but I know that the first seeds I ever used to grow Anacacho orchid were ones that I found in the late summer on a crushed granite path, meaning that they had been baking in the 95 to 105 degree sun for over a month. And out of those 15 seeds planted, all 15 germinated and 14 are still alive today. And these are the few I still haven't found a place for yet. I generally just put seeds in a jar and stick that in the fridge or the pantry, anywhere where the temperature will be consistently cool. I have not seen any loss in viability year to year. The seeds I collected year one germinated last year, so for the average hobbyist, it doesn't really make much of a difference how ideal your storage conditions are. The planning section of the book is a bit long-winded and full of information intended for large growing operations that we aren't concerned with, so I won't read it out loud, but I will briefly address some of the points. A greenhouse is not necessary. Plant them a few months before the first frost or any time after the last frost to be safe. Scarification, meaning for cutting or using acid on a seed, is entirely unnecessary. Fungicide is totally unnecessary unless you have a mist table or a very moist greenhouse. I would just go ahead and plant these seeds straight into a 1-gallon pot using standard potting mix or whatever mix you choose to use, rather than worrying about starting medium and transferring. All that mess is just if you have a whole operation going and you have to conserve space in a greenhouse. The soil I use is normally a very unscientific mix with a hardy plant like this. Typically a mix of old recycled mix from dead plants mixed with some clayish soil from my yard and some new organic potting mix. In my case, I get my gardening mix from Gardenville to loosen up and freshen everything up. It works fine and has never given me any problems with this species, but I'll go into other more specific mixes I make when I go into a video on how to grow something that needs a little bit extra attention. She's spot on with the approximate depth. Don't worry about it too much. I normally go a 1/2 inch to 1 inch, and the results don't noticeably vary. I just measure using my knuckle. Absolutely grow them in partial shade at first, purely for water conservation reasons. When the plant grows to about foot tall, flip the pot upside down and remove the pot to look at the roots. If you see some roots on the outside of the soil and the soil seems to be holding together a little, it is ready to plant in the ground. The best spot is one with sunshine all day long, and the great thing about this tree is that after the second year you won't ever need to water it again, at least assuming that you live in Central Texas or get our average yearly rainfall. So that's how you grow your own Anacacho orchid tree from seed. Thanks for watching. Tschüss.